There comes a moment when everything quietly changes. It's not when you threaten to walk away. It's not when you cry, beg, or explain one more time why their actions keep hurting you. The real turning point happens in the silence. It's the moment you stop writing that long message. You stop checking whether they watched your story. You stop stretching your heart towards someone who keeps pulling away. To you, it feels like giving up, like accepting the end of a battle you never wanted to fight in the first place. But what many people never realize is this. For the person who kept creating distance, your silence rarely feels like relief forever. Eventually, it shakes something deep inside them. Welcome back to Inside Avoidant. Today, we're stepping inside the mind of the dismissive avoidant to understand what really happens when you genuinely let go. Not the kind of distance meant to make them jealous or force a reaction, but the moment your focus shifts back to yourself and you stop chasing completely. What unfolds inside them isn't immediate regret. It's a psychological process that moves through 7 distinct stages. And the first one isn't what most people expect. The first stage is what looks like celebration. This part can be painful to hear, but in the beginning, most dismissive avoidants don't experience heartbreak. They experience relief. You may picture them staring at their phone, missing your messages, wishing they had treated you differently. But that's usually not what's happening. Instead, they feel as if a tremendous weight has been lifted. The reason lies in how their nervous system interprets closeness. During the relationship, every request for deeper connection felt overwhelming to them. Not because your love was unhealthy, but because intimacy activated fears they learned long before they ever met you. When you asked about the future, their mind often translated it into pressure or loss of freedom. When you wanted more quality time, it could feel like they were losing space to breathe. Even sincere affection triggered alarms inside a nervous system trained to protect itself from emotional vulnerability. So, when your messages suddenly stop, their body reacts before their emotions ever do. Stress begins to decrease. They feel lighter. They convince themselves they've escaped something that was holding them back. They create a story that supports this feeling. Maybe the relationship wasn't right. Maybe you were too emotional. Maybe being alone is simply better. These thoughts aren't just excuses. They're psychological defenses designed to help them avoid painful feelings they aren't ready to face. From the outside, they may appear happier than ever. They're spending more time with friends, throwing themselves into work, hitting the gym, or posting a version of life that looks exciting and carefree. They want everyone, including themselves, to believe they never needed anyone. But underneath that confidence, something very different is happening. What they're experiencing isn't lasting peace. It's the rush that comes from recovering their independence. It's the emotional high of removing immediate pressure. They mistake that feeling for healing because the discomfort has temporarily disappeared. What they don't realize is that the discomfort wasn't the real problem. It was covering a much deeper emotional wound that hasn't been dealt with. This phase might last several days or even a few weeks, depending on how effectively they suppress their emotions. But eventually it fades, because human beings aren't built for permanent emotional disconnection. No matter how much someone fears intimacy, the need for attachment never completely disappears. Then the second stage quietly begins. Around the 3rd or 4th week, something starts to feel different. The excitement of freedom slowly loses its intensity, although they usually aren't aware of why. Their brain has become accustomed to a familiar routine. For months, maybe even years, you were the one who reached out first. You started the conversations. You repaired the distance after arguments. Even when they pulled away, they subconsciously expected you to return. That expectation became deeply wired into their mind. They believed that no matter how distant they became, you would eventually close the gap again. Without realizing it, your consistency became part of their emotional security. They could remain detached while still knowing someone wanted them. Now that pattern is gone. The morning text never arrives. The weekend check-in doesn't happen. Special dates pass without a message. At first, they hardly notice. Their attention is elsewhere. But the brain constantly predicts what should happen next. And when reality repeatedly breaks those predictions, it begins searching for answers. Small thoughts start appearing. They haven't contacted me. That's unusual. I thought they would have reached out by now. At this stage, they aren't necessarily missing you. They're noticing that something familiar has disappeared. They may casually check your social media, not because they're overwhelmed with emotion, but because they're gathering information. They want reassurance that everything is still unfolding according to the script they expect. If they find posts that suggest you're still heartbroken or waiting, they feel reassured. It tells them nothing has really changed. But if they see silence, or even worse, they see genuine growth, new experiences, confidence, and real happiness, something uncomfortable begins to grow inside them. A quiet thought starts repeating. What if this time they really moved on? They try to dismiss it. They convince themselves you're pretending or that you'll eventually come back. Still, once doubt enters the picture, it rarely disappears. By the time 4 to 6 weeks have passed and you've remained consistent, the third stage begins. This is where their ego starts to feel the impact. You haven't broken no contact. You haven't sent an emotional message late at night. You haven't reacted to their posts or looked for excuses to reconnect. Your silence is no longer temporary. It's becoming undeniable. For someone with dismissive avoidant tendencies, this creates a conflict they struggle to admit. On the surface, they appear independent and completely self-sufficient. But underneath that image often lives a much older fear. The belief that something about them makes them impossible to love completely. When you kept pursuing them, your attention quietly soothed that hidden insecurity. Every message you sent, every attempt to reconnect, every effort to understand them reinforced one powerful idea. Someone kept choosing them, even when they made closeness difficult. That constant reassurance protected their fragile sense of worth without forcing them to confront the emotional wounds hiding underneath. Your heartbreak after they pulled away quietly reinforced something inside them. It reminded them they were important. As long as you kept chasing, they could feel valued without ever risking true vulnerability. But once you step out of that pattern, everything changes. They no longer have your attention to lean on, and they're left sitting alone with thoughts they've been avoiding. Usually, those thoughts appear late at night, when the distractions disappear. Why haven't they reached out? Did they really move on? Was I less important to them than I believed? Notice what's different now. In the beginning, all of their focus was on themselves and the freedom they had regained. Now their attention slowly shifts toward you, and more specifically, your silence. That creates an unfamiliar kind of anxiety. Before, they feared feeling trapped by closeness. Now they fear becoming irrelevant. Without realizing it, they begin looking for signs. They check your stories almost as soon as you post them. They casually ask mutual friends how you're doing, pretending it's nothing more than ordinary conversation. Sometimes, they'll even find themselves driving past places you both used to visit, convincing themselves it's random while secretly hoping they'll see you. Part of them wants proof that you're struggling. Why? Because if you're hurting, it restores the story they've been telling themselves. It confirms they still matter. It tells them they still have influence over your emotions. But when that confirmation never comes, an uncomfortable conflict develops inside them. Their logical mind keeps insisting they made the right decision. Their emotional mind quietly asks, "Then why aren't they trying to get me back?" This is often when they test the connection. Maybe it's a funny meme. Maybe it's a song you both liked. Maybe it's a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" sent late at night. These messages usually aren't full attempts to rebuild the relationship. More often, they're attempts to measure whether you're still emotionally available. They're checking to see if the door is still open. Unfortunately, this is where many people unintentionally restart the entire cycle. The phone lights up, hope rushes back. They answer immediately, sharing every feeling they've been holding inside. The avoidant instantly feels the reassurance they were searching for. They know they still matter. And because that uncertainty disappears, so does the urgency. In many cases, they retreat once again because the emotional discomfort they were trying to calm has already been resolved. If you remain consistent, however, something much deeper begins to unfold. Around the second or third month, they enter a stage where their memories start changing. The human brain naturally softens painful memories faster than pleasant ones, and for someone with avoidant defenses, this effect becomes even stronger. While you were together, their mind constantly searched for reasons to create distance. Small disagreements felt enormous. Every request for closeness became evidence that they needed more space. Their brain magnified your flaws because doing so protected them from intimacy. Now those protective walls aren't working as hard. The irritation begins fading. The pressure disappears. And what remains are the moments they once overlooked. They remember laughing with you. They remember conversations that lasted for hours. They remember feeling understood in ways they rarely experienced with anyone else. They think about the version of the relationship before fear took over, before emotional defenses convinced them they needed distance. Little by little, you become less like a former partner and more like an idealized memory. This is why so many dismissive avoidants struggle to let go of past relationships. It's not because everything was perfect, it's because distance allows the mind to polish the memories while quietly erasing much of the discomfort. The irony is impossible to ignore. When you were close, love felt threatening. Now that you're far away, loving you feels safe. They can miss you without having to compromise. They can imagine you without exposing themselves emotionally. They can replay memories without risking rejection. Sometimes those memories appear unexpectedly. A familiar song starts playing. Someone nearby wears a fragrance that reminds them of you. Something exciting happens during the day, and for a split second, their first instinct is to tell you before reality catches up. These moments aren't dramatic breakdowns. Dismissive avoidants rarely express emotion that way. Instead, they're small fractures in the emotional walls they've spent years building. The heartbreaking part is that they're no longer seeing the real you. They're falling in love with the version their memory has created. A version that asks nothing from them, never disagrees, never needs reassurance, and never challenges their fears. Because you've stayed silent, nothing interrupts that illusion, and with every passing day, it becomes stronger. Eventually, they decide it's time to move on. They convince themselves someone new will finally make everything easier. They download dating apps, they accept invitations, they start meeting new people. But this is where the emotional collapse often speeds up. Every new connection is unconsciously measured against what they had with you. No one seems to compare. They sit across from someone attractive, kind, and interesting, yet something feels missing. This new person doesn't understand their habits. They don't know the little routines that made everyday life feel familiar. They haven't built the trust that took months or years to develop. You already crossed those bridges. You invested the patience, understanding, and emotional effort required to truly know them. Ironically, the emotional intensity they once labeled as too much now feels meaningful. The conversations they once escaped now seem richer than the polite, surface-level interactions they're experiencing with someone new. For the first time, they begin recognizing something painful. They're not happier. They're simply emptier. The quiet they fought so hard to protect starts feeling lonely instead of peaceful. The freedom they celebrated begins feeling strangely hollow. Without saying it aloud, they start wondering whether the problem was never your love at all. Maybe your presence was the very thing protecting them from a loneliness they never recognized. This is when genuine grief finally arrives. Not relief, not curiosity. Real loss. They're mourning someone who understood them deeply. Someone who stayed despite seeing the parts they tried hardest to hide. Someone who loved them through fears most people would have walked away from. The cruelest part is that the qualities they once resisted, your emotional openness, your depth, your willingness to fight for the relationship, are now exactly what they miss. Yet shame often keeps them frozen. How do they admit they pushed away someone who genuinely cared? How do they explain that fear made them destroy something valuable? For many, they never say those words. Instead, they quietly revisit old conversations, scroll through old pictures, and replay memories long after everyone else believes they've moved on. Eventually, the final defenses begin collapsing. The explanations they once relied on stop making sense. The stories that blamed you lose their power. Piece by piece, they're forced to face a truth they've avoided for years. Maybe it happens during therapy. Maybe it's in the middle of a sleepless night. Maybe it's after unexpectedly seeing you again and realizing how much emotion still exists beneath the surface. However it happens, the realization is impossible to ignore. You weren't asking for too much. You were asking for something every healthy relationship requires. You weren't overly emotional. You simply had the courage to express what you felt. You weren't trying to control them. You were trying to build genuine closeness with someone who had spent a lifetime running from it. You were simply trying to love them. Yet, they responded by pushing you away. That's where the deepest wound begins to surface. Many dismissive avoidants carry a hidden belief that something is fundamentally wrong with them, that they're incapable of sustaining love or allowing real emotional closeness. While you were still in their life, they could escape that painful belief by convincing themselves you were the problem. It was easier to think you were too emotional, too demanding, or asking for too much. But once you're gone, and especially once they see you healing, that defense no longer works. The story inside their mind begins to change. Instead of thinking they were too much, another thought slowly takes its place. What if I'm the one who's not enough? What if someone truly loved me and I pushed them away? What if I'm the reason I always end up alone? This is the moment their deepest insecurity finally rises to the surface. For some avoidants, this becomes a genuine turning point. The pain of repeating the same cycle eventually becomes stronger than the fear of intimacy. For the first time, they're willing to look inward. They seek therapy, begin learning about attachment wounds, and slowly start doing the difficult work they've spent years avoiding. But not everyone reaches that point. Others sink even deeper into shame. The regret becomes so overwhelming that they convince themselves they've already caused too much damage. They tell themselves they don't deserve another chance. They don't deserve forgiveness. They believe the kindest thing they can do is disappear from your life forever and let you find someone capable of loving you the way you always deserved. Although those outcomes look completely different, they're born from the same painful realization. They finally understand that they've been creating the loneliness they feared all along. Every time someone got close, they built another emotional wall. Every time love asked them to be vulnerable, they chose distance instead. Now, those same walls no longer feel like protection. They feel like a prison. Eventually, the final stage arrives. Months have passed. While they've been wrestling with memories, you've been rebuilding yourself. You've started healing. You've rediscovered the version of yourself that existed before your energy became consumed trying to rescue someone who wasn't ready to face their own pain. And they notice. They see pictures where you're genuinely smiling. They see confidence returning. They see someone who looks peaceful, fulfilled, and alive again. Ironically, that's what unsettles them most, because your happiness proves something they never wanted to believe. You didn't need them to become whole. That realization completely changes the balance of power. For so long, they believed you needed them more than they needed you. Your constant effort, your patience, and your willingness to stay gave them a sense of control and reassurance. Now the opposite is true. You've shown that you can survive without them. More than that, you can build a meaningful life beyond them. Only then do they fully understand what was lost. Not simply a relationship, they lost someone who accepted them despite their fears. Someone who looked beyond the emotional walls instead of walking away from them. Someone willing to invest patience, compassion, and understanding when very few people would. At this point, their path usually divides in one of two directions. Some finally surrender their defenses. The pain of losing you outweighs the fear of vulnerability. They return with genuine accountability, not empty promises. They are prepared to seek help, confront old patterns, and do the uncomfortable work required to build a healthier relationship. For them, losing you becomes the wake-up call that changes their life. But for many others, shame wins. The guilt becomes too heavy to carry openly. Reaching out means risking rejection, admitting mistakes, and facing everything they've spent years trying to avoid. Instead, they remain silent. They choose memories over reality. They carry you with them long after you've moved forward. Every future relationship is quietly compared to what they had with you, and very few ever measure up. They continue loving from a distance, regretting in private, trapped by the same fears that destroyed the relationship in the first place. It's heartbreaking. But here's the most important truth. That story no longer belongs to you. Whether they eventually come back or never contact you again, whether they change their life or repeat the same cycle with someone else, none of those outcomes determine your value. Your worth was never dependent on whether they could receive your love. You didn't fail because you cared deeply. You didn't make a mistake by loving wholeheartedly. You simply reached the point where you understood a painful reality. You cannot heal someone who refuses to face their own wounds. You cannot create emotional safety for someone who fears genuine closeness. And you cannot build a lasting home with someone who keeps running from every place that feels like home. These 7 stages were never about proving who wins after a breakup. They're simply the natural consequences of emotional avoidance. When the chasing finally stops, the person running has no choice but to confront the reason they've been running all along. As for you, your responsibility is much simpler. Keep moving forward. Build a life filled with purpose, peace, meaningful relationships, and genuine joy. Become so connected to yourself that by the time they fully understand what they lost, you've already discovered something far more valuable than the relationship you were trying to save. You found yourself. That's where real healing begins. It isn't found in watching someone else's world fall apart. It's found in watching your own life come back together. Thank you for being here with Inside Avoidant. If this message spoke to your heart, remember that countless others have walked this same path, and healing is possible. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep choosing your own peace, one step at a time.